I welcome everybody to 5 o'clock readings slot. As myself and 5 author colleagues are going to read for you now, 7 minutes apiece. We're going to spend the next 50 minutes doing some readings and some questions. I'm going to read too. Okay, we're going to start with Cari Hunter. And the rest of us, when Cari's reading, we're going to turn our videos off and our mics off so we don't distract you. Thanks, Cari.
Just wait for everybody to disappear. Hi, my name's Cari Hunter, and this is going to be a reading from my new thriller, mystery, police procedural novel, Unbreakable, which is out in October. I don't think the text actually needs an introduction because it's right from the first chapter. This is the start of the book. So I will just go for it. It was an easy mistake to make. 12 hours and 5 minutes after starting her shift, Grace Kendall had replenished her kit and shut down the response car's data terminal. She was so knackered she was tripping over her own feet, but still, when she heard the footsteps approaching, she shouldn't have assumed it would be Gav coming back for something he'd forgotten. She should have been more careful. Don't move, don't make a sound. A woman's voice, low and rough. For a bewildered few seconds, Grace tried to place it, convinced it was one of her colleagues taking the piss. But the command was underscored by a firm jab in the centre of her back, and she realised with a sickening lurch that the woman had a gun and that this wasn't a joke. The woman was close, her breath rasping on Grace's neck. She clamped her free hand onto Grace's shoulder, digging her fingers in around the bone. Keep your hands where I can see them. Grace splayed her palms on the car's storage cage and then gripped the metal to keep herself upright. Safe, she whispered. They're in the safe. Keys in my pocket. What? What's in the safe? The woman rocked back a step, and Grace had a fleeting impression of someone taller than her, but that was all. A dark hood concealed the woman's face, casting it into shadow. Morphine, diazepam, ketamine, Grace said, rattling off the drugs most likely to appeal. Just take them. That's not... The woman broke off to snap a ragged breath. I don't want them. Grace took a deep breath of her own, forcing herself to stay calm. Okay, that's okay. What do you want? But even as she asked, she figured out the answer. The woman was shaking, not with the uncontrollable vigour of a user, but with the insidious, subtle tremor that came from pain and shock. You're hurt, Grace said. Let me take you to the hospital. No hospital, the woman said. Her voice was steadier and she pushed the gun in harder. You're a doctor and I've been shot. Get what you'll need. My car's over there. No, I can't. Grace shook her head in a pathetic attempt to pacify the crazy, bleeding woman. It wasn't as if she could plead mistaken identity. Her high-vis jacket had doctor emblazoned across its back. Cold sweat slapped her hair against her forehead, and the frost bit in, setting her shivering. Her words puffed out white and rapid fire. I can't. It doesn't work like that. This isn't like you see on the telly. Shut up, the woman said. Just shut the fuck up. Get your stuff. Come on. Okay. Oh, God. Okay, I'll do it. Give me a minute. Grace began to lower her kit to the ground. She dropped the last pouch and raised her hands. She still had her back to the woman. I'm going to reach into my pocket for the safe key, all right? Cold fingers closed around hers. I'll get it. Stay still. Grace obediently spread her arms again. The hand the woman had touched had fresh blood smeared across it. Here. The woman dropped the key into Grace's palm and allowed her to open the car's rear door. The drug safe was fixed to the floor behind the driver's seat, and Grace shoved herself into the footwell, protected by the darkness for the few seconds it took her to retrieve the drugs. What would the woman do if Grace simply refused to move again? Don't touch anything else, the woman warned, and Grace decided not to chance it, crawling back out of the door. The woman had managed to pick up 2 of the bags. Grace collected the remainder, and for the first time turned to face her. The moon chose that moment to break free, pouring silver light onto the car park. The woman winced, instinctively shielding her eyes with her gun hand. Jesus, Grace hissed. Who did this? One side of the woman's face was a swollen mess of bruising, her left eye almost closed and her jaw purple and green. An oozing laceration on her forehead that should have been stitched was instead pulled together by steri strips. Doesn't matter, she said. She gestured with the gun toward the pedestrian gate that no one ever used. Go. Grace set off, staggering beneath the weight of the bags. At the gate, she entered the key code without hesitating, resigned to her fate for now. She pushed the heavy metal door as the light blinked green and held it open for the woman. Thank you, the woman said, and she sounded so weary that Grace almost smiled to try to reassure her. She didn't, though. She walked on in silence toward a black Audi parked by one of the maintenance buildings. She stopped when she heard the jangle of keys. The woman was holding a set out to her. You're driving, the woman said, and clicked the central locking. And I'll come back now. Waiting for everybody to come back.
No, very, very dramatic. Chilling. That's the comment, I think, in the chat. Thank you. I think second reading we're going to have from Mickey. Over to you, Mickey.
Okay, hi, I'm Mickey Brent, author of Underwater Vibes and Broad Awakening. Today I'm going to read you an excerpt from my latest manuscript, Blended Lives, my third lesbian romance. It hasn't been published yet, but it will be soon. This excerpt involves Lucy, a 22-year-old lesbian from Boston, searching for her soulmate in San Francisco. In this scene, Lucy's straight best friend, Molly, puts her up to a dare that forces her to view the world through brand new lenses. That's ridiculous, I grimaced. Remember when we tried the foxtrot? You bet, complete disaster. Molly grinned at me in my orange boxers. That's why you're gonna do it, Lucy. Trust me, you'll thank me later. She was right, as always. I was in a rut. Time for me to groove outside my comfort zone. It's not as if I hadn't tried to meet the perfect girlfriend. Since I moved to San Francisco, I've been dancing on podiums at queer clubs 3 nights a week, but I had yet to meet the lesbian of my dreams. Okay, you win. Molly slapped my shoulder, nearly knocking off my glasses. I knew you'd come around. Doesn't mean I'll take salsa lessons all summer, just this one. Molly nodded. Let's find you something sexy. Sexy? Really? I scratched my stomach. What are you wearing? Sorry. Molly started rummaging through the closet. No way. You promised you'd come with me. With her head wedged between my jackets, she shot me a muffled excuse. I'm working on Sunday. I tweaked her ponytail, as if babysitting for your sister is working. Get yourself a replacement. Who knows what weirdos might be out there. Good try, but you're going solo, trooper. With me tagging along, you'll never get the full experience. Full experience of what? Macho guys with slick back hair, shaggy chests, and sweaty palms trying to score with me? I sighed. Lesbian's dream, all right. I tweaked her ponytail again. I'd say it's more up your alley. Except I go for bald guys, remember? Close enough. They're all loaded with testosterone. She spun around. Actually, some of the women I've seen in those queer clubs of yours pack more testosterone in their muscular bulges than any of the guys I've dated. Just look at your legs, and never mind your boxers. We won't even go there. I inspected my thighs. They were slim, yet strong, from all the biking, dancing, swimming, and weightlifting I did, and overdid, at least 4 hours a day. Okay, my legs were slightly hairy above the knees, and maybe a bit below. But it was a fine blonde fuzz. I wasn't great at remembering to shave, like all menial tasks. Besides, it was summer in the city, foggy and freezing as usual. When would anyone see my thighs except Molly? Anyway, the extra fuzz kept me warm. Wear this, shows off your muscular chest. Molly held up my favorite tank top. I flinched. Tank tops don't jive with salsa moves, do they? Shouldn't I wear something more flowing or frilly? Seriously, Lucy, showing up in drag won't score you a date with a charming Latina. I had to admit, for a straight gal, Molly knew a ton about lesbian preferences. Must have been flipping through those chick-lit magazines at her hairdressers again. Point taken. So which pants should I wear? These butch ones with a zillion pockets. Wait, are they clean? She held them at arm's length, wrinkling her nose. I know how worked up you get, gyrating on those podiums. Day-old sweat's a surefire turnoff for any lesbian worth her salt. I wrapped my jean jacket over my bare shoulders. Who takes salsa lessons on a Sunday night? Molly had scraped up a last-minute lame excuse, so I was on my own. Clases de Salsa was painted in large red letters on the building's facade. I couldn't find a doorbell, so I pushed open the door and took a tentative step into the darkness. A female voice said, "Hola." I'd lived in California long enough to know that hola meant hello. Hola, I replied, since this was the Mission District. It made sense to speak Spanish, though I only knew 3 words. ¿Le puedo ayudar en algo? Conversing with a woman whom I couldn't see in the dark, in a language I couldn't understand, in a strange part of town, definitely yanked me out of my comfort zone. I cleared my throat. Sorry, my Spanish is terrible. No problem, we can speak English, said the voice with a perfect Californian accent. Then the lights came on. As my eyes adjusted to the brightness, they took in the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen, with short dark hair and luscious brown eyes. Isabel, she said, holding out her hand, but everyone calls me Isa. Her hand was soft and warm, yet her grip was firm, just like her body, from what I could tell by her tight-fitting outfit. Its silky black fabric molded her figure in all the right places. She had to be a dancer. I'm Lucy, I stammered, adjusting my glasses. Encantada, Lucy. Her charming smile put me at ease and let me glimpse her incredibly white teeth. That means I'm pleased to meet you. Encantada, me too. This is my first time here. I peeled my gaze from her adorable face to check out the studio. Apparently, we were all alone. I know, she had a gleam in her eye. I would have remembered you. Just by looking at her, I could tell from her strong shoulders to her shapely calves, she was solid muscle. I'd have remembered you too, I thought, feeling my cheeks burn. She was still holding my hand. Did she just give it a squeeze, or was I dreaming? She released it gently and retreated in her dance slippers over the smooth wooden floorboards. Come on in. I felt a prickly sensation at the back of my neck. Was she the salsa teacher? No matter who this Isabel was, I could tell I was headed for the most magical night of my life. That's it. I'm Mickey Brent. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mickey. You had me at luscious brown eyes. I was interested in her from that very moment, but thank you. Next up, we've got Jane. Jane Fletcher's going to read for us now. Looking forward to this, Jane.
Okay, I'm reading from the prologue to my novel Silver Ravens. Prologue's a pretty good place to start. It takes place in the mid-17th century, whereas the main story will jump forward 250 plus years to the present day. However, it sets the tone for what is coming in the rest of the novel. So, in the prologue. I dare you. Why should I? What do I get? I'll think of something. Eleanor spoke with her head tilted coyly to one side. Her eyes glinted, taunting, teasing. The sway of her hips promised a reward that would not be forthcoming. She was playing games again. Tamsin knew it, but was unable to say no. She tore her gaze from the strand of blonde hair fluttering across Eleanor's cheek. For the sake of her pride, she should tell Eleanor to find herself another toy. Yet, as much as Tamsin wanted an end to the games, even more she wanted Eleanor to smile at her again. But this didn't mean she had to roll over like a puppy. You're being childish. Tamsin crossed her arms and looked away in a show of indifference. A solemn peace surrounded St. Benedict's parish church. The service was over and everyone had gone to join the revelry on the village green. She and Eleanor were alone in the graveyard, except for the pair of ravens that nested in the bell tower. You're frightened. You're frightened the devil will snatch you away. Eleanor smirked, seeing her barb hit home. No, I'm not. I just don't want to miss out. Listen, the music's starting. Distant laughter mingled with the sound of fiddle and drum. The maypole was back on the green after 16 long years of banishment by Parliament and the joyless Puritans. Now Lord Protector Cromwell was gone, and there was a new King Charles. They would be dancing around the maypole for the first time since Tamsin was born. It won't take long. Eleanor caught Tamsin's hand and swung their arms like a skipping rope. As ever, her touch melted Tamsin's resolve. Rah, rah! The raven launched himself from the bell tower, cawing as he swooped overhead. Eleanor jerked her hand free and raised her arms as if to ward off attack. The reaction was unexpected, bringing a sudden understanding. Eleanor had picked the dare not because it was childish and she wanted to make Tamsin play the fool, but because the idea scared her. She dared not do it herself. The game had changed and the challenge had become irresistible. Tamsin squared her shoulders and turned to the ancient stone, sheltered by the yew trees. Hobbs Gate stood in the corner of the graveyard. Legend said it was even older than the church. Village children grew up with the stories. The devil had turned a sinner into stone. Witches danced around it naked under a full moon. Folk who slept in its shadow were never seen again. Children would squeal and shudder, pretending to be frightened, but deep down inside everyone knew it was safe. Also, Tamsin had assumed. She smiled as she wove between the gravestones, aware of Eleanor trailing behind. The hems of their skirts brushed through the long grass. Despite the midday sun, the corner of the churchyard was cold. Hobbs Gate was a finger of granite more than twice Tamsin's height, pointing to the sky. The grass around it was clear, as if even the gravestones were unwilling to approach. Only the yew trees seemed drawn to Hobbs Gate. Their branches twitched in the breeze, reaching out to caress it. Their weaving shadows flitted over the weathered stone. Tamsin stopped, close enough to touch the raw, rough rock, pockmarked by weather. Orange lichen mottled the northern side, creating fantastic shapes like demons or faces contorted in pain. The pagan stone did not belong here, tethered to a Christian church, but it did not frighten her. You don't have to do it. Eleanor sounded scared. Tamsin glanced over her shoulder. Why not? You want me to go around it 3 times widdershins, right? That was the dare, the detail all the children's tales agreed on, but she was no longer a child. Tamsin began walking. Eleanor cowered behind a large gravestone. Self-scrutiny played no part in her nature, but she was aware of being pulled between 2 emotions. Teasing Tamsin was fun, far more so than the village boys who trailed after her making doe eyes. They were boring. Like fairground puppets, anyone could tug their strings. Whereas you could never be quite sure if Tamsin would come to heel when she snapped her fingers. But now Eleanor was nervous and she did not like it. The stupid stone made her skin prickle. It was all Tamsin's fault, agreeing so easily. The dare wasn't meant seriously. Of course not. Tamsin should have known it. The music got louder, claiming Eleanor's attention, though the green was hidden from sight behind houses. The dancing would be starting. Several lads had asked her to partner them. She had said yes to some, not that she wanted to. But who would Tamsin dance with? She was taller than most boys. Eleanor's mood brightened. Could 2 girls dance together? That would be a better dare. They should forget the nonsense with Hobbs Gate. She turned back as Tamsin began another circle. To Eleanor's surprise, bands of mist were rising from the grass, swirling around Tamsin's knees. Eleanor looked up. The sky overhead was still unbroken blue. A sudden clamour of church bells pealed out, splitting the air and driving both ravens from their roost. Eleanor gripped the gravestone for balance. Her heart hammered. But it was just the midday chimes, the same as every day, although duller than normal, as if muffled by fog. The ravens circled the bell tower. A feather drifted down and landed at Eleanor's feet, a black feather, dark as Tamsin's hair. The prickling returned, sharper than before. Eleanor would not stay a second longer. They must leave at once and forget the horrid stone. She turned to Hobbs Gate. The mist was gone, and so was Tamsin. Eleanor was alone in the churchyard. That's it.
Oh, you could do another 5 minutes. I don't think the rest of us would mind, Jane. No. Okay, thanks very much. And absolutely 2 girls can dance together. I know that for a fact. Thank you. We're going to hear now from Illeandra. Over to you, Illeandra.
Where's my video gone? There we go. Apologies. Okay, hi, I'm Illeandra Young, and I'm going to be reading from Moon Fever, which is not the one behind me. It's the second one. I didn't have an image for that. In this scene, Danica is in Spear headquarters dealing with a werewolf who has been brought in on the charges of unlawfully infecting people with the lupine virus. He was supposed to go to a holding cell, but he tricked the folk arresting him to come here, and nobody's very happy about it. For reference, a Chitarik is a small, like cat-sized dragon creature with a skin flap for carrying messages and wings a bit like a bee. Right. Maury stalks up behind me, his gun still aimed at Wendy's head. We have a protocol and a procedure for a reason, Carson. And sometimes it's bullshit. The situation is calm now. Why would you do something to heat it up again? To protect the agents of this cell. That's my job too, and I'm telling you now, cuffs are not how to do it. Cuff that werewolf. I hesitate. How far can I really push this? I've been lucky this morning, but the tick beneath Maury's left eye suggests he might snap any second. How close to the edge can I dance before tumbling into the disciplinary abyss? Now, Carson. Wendy clears his throat. I am Wensleydale Gordon, alpha of the dire wolf pack, unchallenged and undefeated. His voice deepens, swelling with power, pride, and authority. I place myself under the dominion of Agent Danica Carson until such time as she releases me from my pledge. My words, my actions, my body and life are hers to command. With all persons here gathered in witness, this I vow upon my blood, upon my life. Oh, well, shit. Maury's mouth falls open. He stares first at me, then Wendy, as though his jaw has dropped and locked into place. What? You heard me, meat sack. I'm under the girl's command now. I'll do as I'm told, so long as she says it. Wendy, I shake my head. Why? I didn't want this. He pulls a crooked smile. Neither did I, girl, but here we are. More agents lower their guns. Noel backs off completely, leaning against one of the nearby desks with a sigh and a trembling hand pressed to his chest. Still, Maury looks lost. But what does that mean? Wow. Someone really needs to buff up on their werewolf societal rules. I offer him a wry glance. It means, Maury, that I can do this. Wendy, get up. Despite his creaking knees and aching back, Wendy obeys, scattering all the Chitauric but Norma, who simply shifts to rest on his head instead. Sit down. Again he obeys. Bark like a dog. Wendy frowns. Girl, I'm not. Just do it. Though clearly embarrassed, Wendy obeys the ridiculous instruction. Even in his human voice, the sound is clearly canine, and still more of the agents stare at me in open bewilderment. Great. Now tell me that I'm the most beautiful woman you've ever seen. Wendy laughs, but repeats the phrase word for word, complete with fluttering eyelashes, longing looks, and clasped hands. Finally, put those cuffs on your wrists. Sighing, Wendy steps away from me to the agent on his left. The poor man looks about ready to bolt and offers no resistance as Wendy plucks the cuffs from his grip. He unfastens the loops one by one and feeds his own wrists into them. A few clicks later and the cuffs are fully closed. Happy now? He directs this at Maury. Well, I guess so. Finally, Maury lowers the gun. How long does this go on for? I shrug. Like he said, until I release him. Oh, then I guess it's okay. He continues to stare, only now his expression has changed. No longer is it one of anger and vague distrust, but consideration and, dare I say it, respect. Makes a nice change. Wendy. What, meat sack? Get rid of those cuffs and come with me. We need to talk. The skin on Wendy's arms and hands immediately ripples with a sudden growth of fur and claws. With it comes a flex of abruptly thicker muscle, and the cuffs break apart like loops of paper. After brushing away the shattered pieces of steel, Wendy allows the change to stop and flow in reverse, all while strolling to meet me. He positions himself slightly behind me, on my right side, close enough that his chest occasionally touches my arm. I shift my elbow to maintain the physical contact between us. Maury grunts. Who the hell went into the field for a werewolf pickup with steel cuffs? Don't you people know anything? Did you at least have silver bullets? There are sheepish looks and lowered gazes from the agents around us. I leave them to it, guiding Wendy up the stairs and towards the conference room. We need to talk at length. And that's all you get for now. Thanks
Thanks
very
so
much.
much, Illeandra. You have a beautiful voice, actually. You should do audiobook narration as well as write.
I do. Shh.
Sorry. Okay, thank you very much. Crin, over to you. Take it away. You're muted. Crin, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry. I'm reading from The Supernatural Detective, which is the first book of 2 in the Supernatural Detective series. This is early on in the book. Tony Carson is a psychic who sees ghosts and talks to ghosts, and she has a spirit guide who is a New York drag queen called Deirdre. The other person in this scene is a deputy stage manager called Beth. Tony is also a lighting technician. She works in the West End. Tony nodded to the guy on the stage door as she ran through to the back stairs and dashed into the lighting box, just in time for show call. Tony on cans, she announced, putting the headset on and speaking into the microphone that hovered just in front of her mouth. The deputy stage manager laughed. "I'm guessing you're panting because you're late again, rather than excited to be speaking to me." "Mm-hmm," Tony muttered, switching on the lighting desk. Whenever the DSM got drunk, she'd whisper huskily, "I'm practically bisexual, it's just I love my boyfriend." Tony avoided being in dark corners with her and wished she wouldn't embarrass herself on cans with the whole crew listening. "Beginners on stage, please. Stand by lighting cues 2 through 4. "Standing by," Tony responded. She looked through the big glass window in front of her at the audience in the upper circle taking their seats. Soft, red, fold-up, cinema-style chairs ran in semicircular rows in front of the ornate cream and gold balcony. "Front of house clearance. This is your front of house clearance. Go LX2, sound Q2, fly Q1. The DSM might be a nightmare after one too many Bacardi breezes, but she was second to none at calling the show. Tony pressed the go button. The house lights dimmed and the pre-show lighting state faded to a dim blue sidelight as flying crew lifted the front tabs, revealing the stage to the audience for the first time. A line of dancers strutted on and stood behind chairs as the lights silhouetted them in their angular pose. The audience relaxed into the opening number. Tony had time to read the paper during scene 3, a long scene with no songs that she swore got longer every night. "My God, you could get a bus through there," pauses. Alarmed, Tony clicked her head up to find the ladyboy from her dream perched on the other high swivel chair. "Are you real?" she stuttered. "Oh, you silly lesbian," Deirdre tisked. "Haven't you worked it out by now? I'm your spirit guide." Tony stared, open-mouthed. "That's not a look that works for you," Deirdre said, looking down her aquiline nose at Tony. Tony closed her mouth. "Go away, I'm working." "Working, schmirking. All you do is press a button, and someone tells you when to do that. I rig lights as well, and I focus them, and other things." Deirdre didn't look impressed. "You're ignoring your true calling. You're psychic, and people need psychics. Well, dead people need psychics. So step up and do your duty, you sapphic sap." "Stand by, LXQs 25 through 32. "Standing by," Tony muttered. "Now shut up, I've got to concentrate." She glared at Deirdre. "I beg your pardon," the DSM said through Tony's headset. "Shit, I haven't switched my mic off." Tony flushed with embarrassment. "How can I shut up? I'm cueing you. See how far you get without me reminding you. We all know you practically nap through the show." Deirdre snorted as Tony wondered how the DSM could possibly be so snippy. Usually people at least had the courtesy to sleep with her before they spoke to her like that. Sally Bowles took her bowler hat off. That was LXQ 25. Tony was sure of it. The DSM was deathly quiet. Should Tony go anyway? Sweat broke out on her forehead. Her finger hovered over the go button. Go cues 25 through 32. Tony hit go. Would you like my assistance in future? The DSM said. Yes, I wasn't talking to you. Who were you talking to then? Is there somebody in the lighting box with you? The DSM said sharply. No. Tony glanced at Deirdre, who was reapplying lipstick and combing through her wig. Someone else is coming, so be ready, she said out of the corner of her mouth. Tony switched off her mic. Who? You see dead people, honey. Get used to it. Also, get some advice. I told you, go and see your dad. Tony looked Deirdre up and down. Are you dead? Hard to believe, I know, but don't feel bad for me. This beauty will never age. Deirdre patted her nose with face powder. You'd tell me if I had a sheen, wouldn't you, honey? Huh? Tony peered at Deirdre in the dim light of the lighting box. Tony, what's the matter with you tonight? Go LX33. Tony looked round to see a scene change taking place in full light. Quickly she plunged the stage into a pale lilac glow. When she looked back, Deirdre had vanished again. That's it for now.
Thank you very, very much. Sapphic sap, that was a bit neat. Thanks, Crin. I'm going to read from Not This Time, before we go to questions. It's a second chance romance between two former bandmates. This is from the prologue of the book. So it's 5 years before the main action happens in the book. You trying to sober me up? Maddie took off her jacket and tossed it onto the pile of clothes before sitting on the edge of Sophia's bed. You sound like Dale and Susie. I told them you were leaving and they spent the last hour trying to make me drink coffee and come and see you. She took off her boots and kicked them under the bed. Like you, they seem to think we have things we need to talk about. Maddie had not taken her eyes off her and Sophia was transfixed by the attention. It's funny how people want to talk when they want to talk, but manage to not say very much when they've got secrets to keep. Sophia could hear all of the feelings from earlier, the upset, the anger, the hurt pride. And then Maddie looked her up and down, and her eyes flashed with something else, something Sophia understood well. Above all else, they needed to talk, but her body betrayed her by reacting to Maddie's gaze. She felt the gentle thrum of arousal between her legs and knew there was nothing she wanted more than to taste Maddie's mouth, to feel Maddie's hands on her. But it wasn't the way they were going to fix things between them. She made herself speak. I thought you weren't going to come. I called so many times. You didn't. I think you knew I was going to come. Maddie cut her off. I'm stupid enough to be in love with you. You want to talk? Let's talk. Maybe you can explain to me how you leaving the band is anything other than you turning your back on us, on me. Anything other than you deciding you're too good for us. Too good for me. The last 4 words came out a little choked, and Sophia couldn't help but move toward Maddie. If she couldn't find the words to tell Maddie how much she loved her, maybe she'd let her kisses make it clear. Don't. The single word stopped Sophia in her tracks. I'm sorry, I just want to hold you. I'm scared. I didn't mean to ruin anything. I just thought it was time. I thought we both felt that. And I thought we'd be happier, that we'd finally be able to have our relationship without them interfering. You always hated the way they made us hide it. Sophia spoke in a rush, tears forming in her eyes. Waiting for Maddie to come back to her today had taken its toll. So you're leaving the band for me? Maddie spoke with something close to a sneer. The lucrative solo career, the high-profile collabs, the deal on your first album, all for us. That's sweet, Sophie. Completely fucking deluded, but kind of sweet. Don't be like this. I know you're hurting, but I did do this for us. And yes, I also did it for me. Sophia knelt on the floor in front of Maddie. There was no point in pretending that she was doing anything other than throwing herself at Maddie's feet and hoping she'd see sense. We've hated this past year. You know we have. The songs they give us are embarrassing and they treat us like puppets. We both want to write and perform our own music. We've said it so many times. She was struggling to get the words out, to make it sound as right as she knew it was. We knew the band wasn't forever. We didn't even think it would last this long. And this is our chance to move on. She willed Maddie to understand. This is your chance, Sophie, not ours. Don't kid yourself. Felix is buying out your contract, but he's doing that for you, not for the rest of us. They'll expect the three of us to just carry on without you. It will be worse for me, not better. And that's not even the worst thing. You agreed to a fucking solo contract without telling me, without even discussing it with me. Can you imagine how stupid I feel right now? I thought we had something special, that we were in this together. She faltered. I let you in. I know you know that I worshipped you. Sophia hated hearing Maddie use the past tense about them. It terrified her. You always made me feel so special, but now? Maddie waved a hand into the space between them, as if to suggest that whatever it was gone. Sophia got up onto her knees, leaning toward Maddie. She took her hands. Maddie tried to shake her off, but Sophia held onto them tightly, and Maddie relented. I'm not leaving you, Mads. I'm not. I know it will be hard at first, because we're used to being together all the time, but it'll be better for us, I promise. We can do and be what we want. We don't have the record company saying it's against the terms of that fucking contract we signed when we were too young to know any better. I want to write and sing my own songs, but I'm also sick of them controlling our lives, and I know you are too. She looked at Maddie, wanting her to believe it would be better, that it was a start and not an end for them. Maddie pulled her hands away, but Sophia didn't move. She put her hands on Maddie's knees, needing to be touching her somehow. You didn't talk to me about it, Sophie. It makes me feel like a fool to have trusted you. I told you as soon as I decided. It's just happened so quickly. Felix is mad that I told you He wanted me to wait, but I couldn't. Sophia wanted it to count for something. You can trust me. You know that. I love you, Maddie, so much. I did this for me. Of course I did. But I honestly did it for us too. You have to believe me. Tonight, when you didn't come, when you didn't call, was the most unhappy, the most heartsick I've ever felt. The idea of losing you is terrifying. Sophia rested her head on Maddie's knees, letting the tears fall finally. Maddie tensed beneath her, and Sophia waited for her to push her away. But then she felt Maddie's fingers in her hair, stroking her head gently, soothing her as she wept. Sophia felt the relief in her body replaced with arousal as Maddie's fingers moved from her hair to trail across her neck, across her shoulders. I was always going to come. I think we both know that. Maddie's voice was barely above a whisper. I don't know how to be without you. Sophia's breath caught in her throat as Maddie's nails raked down the top of her spine, feeling like someone had plugged her into an electric socket. Jolts of arousal pulsed from Maggie's fingertips and landed between her legs. Maddie's fingers kept moving, overloading her senses. She lifted her head to look up at Maddie. Her brown eyes were almost black, her lips full and red. She stared at Maddie's mouth. Normally, she didn't wait, had never waited to be kissed by Maddie. It was her favourite thing, and every moment they had alone meant Sophia would go to her, claim that mouth, kiss those lips. But as Sophia knelt in front of Maddie, she understood that this time she had to wait. Maddie's gaze moved from her eyes to her mouth and back again, and Sophia was mesmerised by it. Then, briefly, Maddie closed her eyes. When she opened them, she seemed to have decided something, because she reached one hand to the back of Sophia's neck and the other to the small of her back, pulling her closer and capturing her mouth in a hard, possessive kiss. Sophia moaned, heat coursing through her body at the taste of Maddie's lips, the feel of her tongue, the urgency of the kisses. She could taste tequila and coffee mingled together in Maddie's mouth, and it was the sweetest thing she'd ever tasted. Okay, come back to me, colleagues. Welcome back. Everyone, thank you. Thanks very much. For those of you that might have listened to the panel discussion before, we were teasing somebody who had a phobia about the word tongue. I couldn't help but smile when I said the word. Anyway, so we've got a bit of time, 10 minutes, I think, for questions. So thanks to those of you that have put them in the Q&A and in the chat, actually. They're in both places. So a question from Vic is, what do authors like most about writing? Anybody want to have a go?
Having finished. I always say that I don't particularly enjoy writing, but I love having written. When you've actually finished the book and it's there, that is, yeah, I mean, I'm not a natural writer. I have to slog through the writing, but it is a wonderful feeling finishing a book.
I agree with that, yeah. Cari?
It's escapism, isn't it? I think everybody uses it in some ways, escapism, either as a reader or a writer. Although, having said that, I don't tend to escape my day job while I'm doing the writing, because I write about it and about the general sort of things that I see and deal with. So what the hell do I do that for? I have no idea. I enjoy the creativity. I've always been creative. I've always read and I've always written, whether it's been fanfic or, you know, just stories to entertain myself or what. So it's just something that I've always done. So now to be able to write, you know, really quite in-depth stories with really good characters and to properly get my teeth into stuff and to throw away the books that I've got tired of because they weren't representing, you know, my world and my queer characters, basically. That's something that I find really rewarding, the fact that I'm writing queer characters in my world, because obviously we exist. There's thousands of us working in the emergency services, and yet we're not represented in mainstream crime fiction or thriller fiction because it's such a conservative sort of genre in terms of its readership. So to be able to do that and occasionally hit a mainstream reader, not literally, but you know, attract a mainstream reader as well who sort of like gets their eyes open a little bit, that's really good as well. So one of the most rewarding things about writing is the feedback.
That's great. Thank you. Illeandra, do you want to go? What do you enjoy?
There's quite a few things. I feel like it's a bit of a cheat, but the sheer amount of chocolate I can justify consuming is wonderful. Same with the tea, because, you know, writers need fuel. But what I love the most is doing this. And it's like, it feels so silly, but like holding something you've created in your hands, knowing that you can share it, and then just smelling a book, man. It's amazing. And that will it will never, ever get old for me. It doesn't matter how many of these I end up writing. Just picking it up, having that first whiff, it's delicious.
Thank you. Mickey?
I just love, you know, kind of like Cari said, the escapism, really getting in there and just losing myself. I get in the flow and I just want to work on the sentences and just get the plot and the characters. I really fall for the characters, all of them. And then I'm afraid to actually let the book go out because then my friends are gone, you know, and I always make fun characters, I think. And I don't know, I love that part, just making all these friends in my head. Also, I feel good about it because I get it on paper. And then I like to talk about the books as well. I love to do signings and talk with other people, other authors like all of you, and sharing experiences about writing. And especially, yeah, just, I don't know, if I didn't write every day, I think I would go insane. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but I have to. I really have to. Otherwise, I feel bad. You know, sometimes I take a day off, but at least a few hours every day. Yes.
Thank you. Crin?
There we go, my muting and unmuting skills have deserted me today. You didn't think that I actually do work in theatre on the technical side of things. But anyway, yeah, I love writing. I absolutely love writing. I don't get the time that I wish I had. I'm a parent also, and that being a parent takes a lot of time, and working for money to pay the bills takes a lot of time. I work in theatre, which can be long days, and theatre's woken up from a long sleep, so I've just hit a really busy phase again, and I'm sort of looking at my writing time disappearing, as excited as I am about the theatre.
You don't need to sleep, Crin. Come on, where's your commitment? All those hours when you're...
exactly what's sleep. But yeah, what do I love about it? It's something purely for me, and it's like a gift. It's a blessing, absolute blessing for me to write. I love it.
That's good to hear. Good to hear from everyone. We've got a few minutes. There's one question in the chat from Joni. I'm going to try and keep the answers short. We'll go around again. What influenced you to write your current book? Did the idea come from nowhere? Was it long in the gestation? If we can just go around and say a few sentences. You can mention your current book if you want to in answering the question. Do you want to start this time, Mickey?
Sure. So my current book is called Blended Lives. It hopefully will come out next year. It's based in San Francisco, and I used to live in San Francisco, and I just loved it in that time when I was young and younger. And it was really, really a great experience living there, and just having a blend of people, different kinds of people, different backgrounds with a lot of diversity. I'm just very excited about it, and that's the inspiration for me, that city, the city of San Francisco. I just treasure that city, and I am going to go back and present the book there, hopefully several times. I'm already planning that. So
great. I hope with lockdown everything works in your favour. Cari?
I think I said earlier in one of the panels that I didn't really. It's not an original idea. I'm working with Unbreakable. It's quite a familiar premise. I was just trying to count up. I've seen it in at least 2 TV shows and a movie so far. So, injured person kidnaps a doctor for their own nefarious purposes. It's not original, but it's what you do with it that, makes it your own, basically. So I had that as a hook, like a big concept idea. And it was just fun, I think, to muck around with that. And then everything else sort of developed from there. And, it picked up a new character along the way when I realised that actually there was a third part to this story that was outside of Grace and Ellen, who are the main 2 characters from the reading. There's a detective who's basically chasing them because there's been a murder, as well as, how's Ellen got shot. You never get shot doing something. You rarely get shot doing something innocent over here. So, what's she been up to? How has that occurred? And having Safia kind of piecing it all together was one of the most fun parts in writing it, basically. It didn't come out of a real life situation, but I have this horrible habit of making real events happen. So I wrote Breathe, and Manchester flooded basically for about 6 months after I'd written that book. So I'm kind of scared now to go back to work.
Yeah, I don't we need to stop you from writing.
Yeah, basically I should write, fluffy meadows and, sunny days and stuff like that. But yeah. Watch my back at work, basically.
I'm not going to go anywhere near you with those powers.
Illeandra?
What inspired your current work? Yeah, what inspired you to write your current work?
Mostly, I just like writing about vampires, and I had this story that I wanted to continue. But with Moon Fever, I just started thinking, well, if your vampire colleague, who you have to work in close proximity with, is your girlfriend, what's that like? And if your girlfriend is a vampire, what's going to happen when you start menstruating? And it's such a it's a tiny portion of the book, but it really is a springboard for some of the conflict that happens between them, because when they start talking about trust, and it's such a big deal for the pair of them, that I just wanted to explore that a little bit. And because I've brought all of these fantasy creatures into a real world, periods are a real thing that we go through. So how do they all mesh together? Do they mesh together? Does it cause all sorts of other problems? And does it affect your work when you're worried about what your vampire girlfriend's going to do to you, if she's going to do to you? So that's what kicked off Moon Fever.
And you'd have to buy the book to find out, everyone. So it's quite a hook, I think, for all of us. Yeah. I think we've run out of time. Will I get shot if we go over? Someone from Bolstrokes Books can tell me. I don't know. Do we have to stop 50 minutes dead on? We probably do. Okay, I'll stop. I'm sorry, Crin. Sorry, Jane. It was my chair, and we don't get to hear on that last question from you. Thanks to Cari, to Mickey, to Illeandra, to Jane, to Crin, and everyone that joined in with the chat and listened to the readings. Go buy the books if you haven't already.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Bye.